This podcast is a work of historical interpretation. While we strive for accuracy, some aspects of history are open to interpretation and debate. Thank you for listening. People woke up on March 25th, 1913, expecting spring showers. Instead, they found themselves staring at the beginning of one of the worst natural disasters in American history. By the end, nearly the entire city of Dayton lay underwater. Over 360 people were dead statewide. Damage topped, also known as topped. Damage topped $100 million, more than $3 billion today. And downtown Dayton became a raging inland sea with boats navigating Main Street, telephone poles snapping like twigs, entire neighborhoods washed away, and families stranded on roofs for days. Today on Timetellers, we tell the story of the Great Dayton Flood, a disaster so devastating it permanently changed the city's landscape, fostered a new approach to flood engineering across the nation, and showed the world what ordinary people can do when they are faced with extraordinary danger. However, in 2 years from that time, there will be a flood in Mill Creek, and they will have not gotten the new approach to flood engineering in time.
So this one is wild. I know the Miami River flooded, but I didn't think it would basically try to erase Dayton off the map.
Oh, absolutely. It wasn't just a destructive flood. This was a geological event meeting an underprepared city. Let's go back to where it started.
Yay.
Now, this is before my time, but I did grow up outside of Dayton, Ohio.
Oh, what was this, like a month before your time?
Oh, you're hilarious. In March 1913, the Midwest was hit by a series of extraordinarily intense storms. Meteorologists later called them once-in-several-centuries event. These happen more often than once, but you know. Between March 23rd and 25th, a massive storm brought 7 to 11 inches of rain across western Ohio, rapid snowmelt, saturated ground, and a stalled low-pressure system dumping rain for nearly 3 days. Also, in case you didn't know, Dayton sits at the confluence of 5 rivers, those being the Great Miami, Stillwater, Mad Creek, Wolf Creek, and Twin Creek. It's beautiful terrain, but hydrologically dangerous, and I like that term. Hydrologically dangerous.
So why is it called Mad River?
Dangerous. What? Mad River? Good question. I have no idea. I've never actually heard the term Mad River.
Okay.
Growing up in Ohio and in outside of Dayton, but I might have just, not been paying attention.
Or just stopped existing.
Or they renamed it, or yeah. By the early morning of March 25, the levees built to withstand moderate flood levels were being overtopped. By 6 a.m., the levees near the Dayton Water Company, close to West 3rd Street, gave way.
And that's all it took.
It's always the levees. That one breach unleashed what witnesses described as a tidal wave up to 6 to 8 feet high, sweeping into downtown. Newspapers later reported that the water entered so fast that people didn't have time to unlock doors or grab belongings. In less than 4 hours, downtown Dayton was under 10 to 12 feet of water. By midday, some neighborhoods reported up to 20 feet of water, I think that's supposed to say, not snow. I mean, it is March, but...
Yeah.
Okay. One of the most famous accounts came from John H. Patterson, who was the founder of NCR. That stands for National Cash Register. And yes, they are still around, and my dad worked for them. Yeah. When the waters rose, Patterson mobilized his entire factory and workforce to rescue operations. NCR had its own private firefighting units, carpentry shops, and even a fleet of automobiles. Patterson turned it all into an emergency response center. One of the few times in American history where corporations stepped in and did the right thing. And, without being asked. Maybe he was asked, but NCR employees built hundreds of flat-bottomed boats inside the factory on South Patterson Boulevard, then launched them directly into the flooded streets. These boats saved thousands, but even then, not everyone could be reached.
Yeah, I remember reading about people trapped in the St. Elizabeth Hospital. Wasn't that one of the worst spots?
That was horrific. The hospital, located near the river, filled rapidly. Nurses and patients retreated to the upper floors. One nun recalled hearing the building groan as the water slammed into it. They spent 3 days cold, hungry, and helpless, listening to cries from the streets and around them. Then there's the story of the Beckel family, living near Taylor Street. Newspaper accounts described their attempt to flee, but the current swept them farther away. The mother clung to a floating wardrobe for hours in freezing waters before being rescued by NCR boats. Their 2 young children drowned, one of thousands of individual tragedies that piled up that week. Another well-documented account is from Virginia Hamilton's family, the future award-winning author who lived in Yellow Springs. Her relatives traveled to Dayton to search for kin, walking miles through debris, overturned trolley cars, and thick layers of river mud, mapping destruction block by block. Yellow Springs is not too far from Dayton. It's a nice little... There's like a town, but it's also like...
Is
a
there
state
Yellow
park?
Spring?
No.
Oh.
I don't know if it's a state park or like a... Okay, by midday, March 25th, Dayton wasn't just flooded, it was transformed into a lake. We have the up to 12 feet of water in downtown. The Riverview, McPherson Town, and Oregon districts were basically covered with roofs barely visible. Businesses on Main Street, underwater to the second floor windows. Gas lines were ruptured. Fires ignited. Telephone and telegraph lines destroyed, and railroads washed out.
Poor railroads.
I know, right? It's not fair.
Who cares about everything else?
People who couldn't make it to the upper floors climbed trees, telegraph poles, or church steeples. Entire families huddled on rooftops, waving sheets as signals. And this was 1913, so we didn't have cameras like we do now, but this definitely is reminiscent of like the Katrina hurricane aftermath. Definitely saw similar images.
Wait, fires during a flood?
I don't know why I'm laughing. It's so funny. The line's not funny.
Just because I got banned from writing after yesterday.
Yes, that was one of the more terrifying parts of the Dayton story. One we won't really see as much with the Erie Mill Creek flood. Oil tanks and gas lines ruptured underwater. Floating debris struck them like battering rams. Fires ignited on the surface of the floodwaters near 5th Street and Ludlow, burning trapped people before rescuers could reach them. Firefighters couldn't get engines through the water. Some survivors recalled looking out from their attics and neighborhoods simultaneously on fire and underwater. One rescuer later said it looked like the end of the world. I bet it did. It's the end of the world as we know it.
Oh, good. Now we can't broadcast this one.
Funny. Dayton's heroism was extraordinary. NCR's boat-building operation saved an estimated 14,000 people. That's a lot of people to save just by throwing your factory into work and, like, getting people out there to help.
Yeah. Without compensation.
Yeah, I don't know if he got compensated for it.
Not at the time.
Well, no. I mean, but maybe later he got. The Ohio National Guard under General George Wood arrived after marching for miles because roads and trucks were destroyed. They had to march there. They couldn't, this is before helicopters. And not all planes, but modern planes. Yeah. They set up food stations, medical tents, and rescue columns. A young telephone operator named Ella Boughton stayed at her switchboard for nearly 48 hours straight, relaying emergency messages until the rising water reached her knees and she was rescued in a rowboat.
That's the kind of dedication that becomes legend.
And She was female. Just kidding.
Wait, so
I mean, she was.
They existed in history?
Yeah, they did. I mean, they don't get talked about a lot, but they did. And she was honored even at that time, apparently.
Wow. Is there
Yeah.
a statue?
Well, maybe that's where we can leave or put up. We should put up a statue. We should have Dayton put up a statue of Ella Boten. Meanwhile, the Red Cross, then still an developing organization, dispatched teams from Columbus and other cities. The organization, later called the Dayton Flood, the first major civilian relief effort in Red Cross U.S. history. I didn't know that. It's fun.
Huh?
So after the waters finally receded, which didn't happen till March 28th, there was over 40,000 homes damaged, entire blocks of the Oregon District and McPherson Town destroyed. And if you're from Dayton or been around Dayton, you know the Oregon District. You'll be very familiar with that. Buildings collapsed after foundations were scoured out. Streets were buried under 2 feet of mud. Dead animals everywhere. And the smell was described as overpowering. It smelled of oil, sewage, and of course, unfortunately, decay. Bodies were also continued to be found for weeks. Troops kept martial law-style patrols to prevent looting and to enforce quarantines around contaminated zones. I'm not sure if there's chemicals involved, possibly. That's what they were contaminating. Contamination
Well, at
zones.
that point in time, chemicals were everywhere because nobody knew how to dispose of anything properly.
Yes, that's true. Also, Dayton was a lot bigger, double the size of Erie at this time.
Yeah. And this was before the aliens got there.
Yes, before Area 51.
Area 51 isn't there.
No, you didn't let me finish the sentence. I meant to say the Roswell crash of 49, and then the aliens went to Area 41 and then Wright Pat Air Force Base. Yeah. Of course. Official casualty count for Dayton was over 120 deaths, but the statewide totals reached 360, making the 1913 flood one of the deadliest in U.S. history. Damages estimated at about $100 million. That's the equivalent of $3 to $4 billion today. That included damage to factory, bridges, railroads, telegraph lines, businesses, and thousands of homes, as stated. So, I said I grew up outside of Dayton. I technically grew up in a little suburb called Oakwood. So, if you know that, well, then you probably think I'm a snotty brat and my parents were doctors and lawyers. But neither one was either of those. And I grew up on the quote-unquote poor side of Oakwood.
Nope, you were just a nerd.
I was a nerd, though. No, I was an orchestra dork. The Great Dayton Flood didn't just reshape downtown Dayton. It changed the places looking down on the hill. It changed the places looking down on the city as well, primarily the suburb of Oakwood, up on what people then called the Far Hills, which was our main street through the suburb. Or still is. I just don't live there anymore. In 1913, Oakwood was still small. It never got big. Basically, a developing hilltop suburb on high ground just south of Dayton. One local historian later put it bluntly, the flood did not physically touch Oakwood because it was on higher ground.
Superior.
It was superior, very superior attitude. Even the ground was superior. Just kidding.
Obi-Wan would live there.
Yeah. But the residents could watch the catastrophe unfolding below.
Lawn chairs and beer?
Possibly. An Oakwood Historical Society piece describes the community that year as a small city that watched with wonder the sadness at the destruction in the valley.
So they're basically standing on the balcony seats during the apocalypse.
Yeah, who are the two guys from the Muppets that sit up there?
Waldorf and Statler.
Thank you. Yep, that's nice.
How did you know I would know that?
I just had a feeling.
I have those a lot.
Yes. According to early histories like Memoirs of the Miami Valley, peoples whose homes were outside the flood zones, that's Oakwood primarily, and a few other areas, of course, did help. Neighbors gathered in schoolhouses and church buildings on the high ground, forming committees to collect food, clothing, and bedding for families trapped or left homeless in the city below. So they didn't just watch and go, ha ha. A classic local article titled Development of Oakwood Slow Until Dayton's 1913 Flood describe how Oakwood citizens promptly assumed roles of leadership and directed the rescue operations of the hundreds of stranded Daytonians. So part of the reason Oakwood got a little more population was because of the flood. They had to go somewhere. They had to go live somewhere. And also, Patterson, the founder of NCR, lived in what is now Oakwood on Far Hills. And since he had also mobilized his company to help, the Oakwood came along and helped as well. Go ahead.
So you've got Oakwood literally on the hill, and its most famous resident is running this kind of proto-FEMA out of a cash register factory.
Exactly, except he was actually doing it better than FEMA usually does. Oakwood did help save Dayton in the 1913 flood, and in turn, that made Oakwood boom. That same local history notes that development before the flood was steady in Oakwood, but after the disaster, that's when everybody came there. I don't know why I said it like that. That's weird, but... So families who could afford to move, because again, it cost money, left the low-lying river neighborhoods and headed for the far hills. So these would be some prominent families like the Wrights, as in Orville and Wilbur Wright's family.
Ah.
They had a home that's in Oakwood, I think. If not, it's right on the border.
You mean they weren't your neighbors?
No, they were not my neighbors. The flood also even affected the way people design their homes. Specifically, people wanted homes designed to live 100 feet higher than the river, which means they had to be on the... I know, I skipped some.
Okay,
I'm all over the
figure
place.
out where you were just so I knew if I had a lot.
And part of the way to get that 100 feet was to move up to the Oakwood Far Hills. Of course, you had to have money to do that. And the move uphill wasn't open to everybody. The Dayton Jewish Observer, looking back at that period, noted that after the flood, many wealthier families did seek that higher ground, but Jewish families were effectively banned from moving into Oakwood through discriminatory real estate practices and restrictive plotting. Oh, that's my town for you.
Sounds like most of Ohio.
In all fairness, by the late 80s, when my parents moved there, I don't think that was quite the same.
So the flood doesn't just redraw physical lines, it hardens social ones too. The water pushes people uphill, but only some doors at the top of the hill are actually unlocked.
Yep. And Oakwood's role didn't stop with hosting refugees and attracting new homeowners. According to the city's own history, Oakwood civil engineers working in the aftermath of the 1913 flood helped design modern levees and flood control systems that were later used in river communities around the world.
So if downtown Dayton is a cautionary tale, Oakwood is like the epilogue. The 50 minutes at the end of Les Mis when you think it's over 7. Here's what happens to the hilltop suburbs after the water goes away.
That's a good way to put it. The Great Dayton...
I know, that's why I said it.
The Great Dayton Flood is remembered for the damage it did to the valley, but it also explains why, when you drive up Far Hills Avenue into Oakwood today, you've entered a suburb that owes a lot of its shape, its architecture, and even its identity to what the river did in March of 1913. So Dayton refused to be destroyed again. And in one of the most ambitious civil engineering efforts in U.S. history, Dayton founded the Miami Conservative District. Led by engineer Arthur Ernest Morgan, the city and the surrounding counties built 5 massive earthen dams. That would be Germantown, Inglewood, Taylorsville, Huffman, and Lockington. The retarding basin system, areas designed to hold water temporarily. Those were built. A complete rechanneling of the Miami River. Let's just move a river. It's fine. Floodplain zoning laws that were decades ahead of their time. This whole system was completed in 1922. Which really, that's 9 years. That's not bad.
Yeah.
And the result? Since 1913, Dayton has not suffered another catastrophic flood.
Yay.
Morgan's designs became models for U.S. flood control, inspiring TVA projects and influencing the Army Corps of Engineers. TVA? No. TVA is... What are you talking about?
Did you ever see Loki?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was like, this is... Oh my gosh, this is FDR that they're talking about. This is the...
Tennessee Valley is?
Yeah. Authority.
But no, TVA, the temporal variance, whatever, from, that controls all the different timelines.
No, I was thinking along with history,
So was I.
FDR's...
Just alternate history. Alternate timelines.
Goodness. Go ahead. Yep.
So comparing it to Erie's Mill Creek tube, it's basically Dayton's version of making sure a nightmare never repeats.
Yep. Different approach, same motivation, never estimate water again. So if you go down to Dayton today, you can find the Dayton Flood Memorial downtown. There is definitely, and I remember seeing these, high water markers on buildings and all that stuff. I don't know why I said it like that. Exhibits at Carillon Historical Park, which is an excellent little park. If you're ever in Dayton, go see it. That's where a replica of one of the Wright brothers' airplanes is as well. The preserved NCR rescue boats.
Oh.
Archival photos showing rowboats floating past the Callahan Bank building, and reports and diaries in the Wright State University Archive. The Great Dayton Flood of 1913 wasn't just a natural disaster. It was a story of human ingenuity, heroism, and reinvention. The city could have been lost forever, but instead, its people rebuilt stronger, smarter, and with an engineering system that still protects nearly 500,000 Ohioans today.
And honestly, hearing how fast the water came in, it's a reminder that even places that don't feel risky can become dangerous in a matter of hours. Nature doesn't negotiate.
The Dayton flood teaches us that prevention isn't just planning, it's learning from tragedy. Although prevention is necessary, and we should probably not wait all the time for tragedies to strike before we do anything about it.
Thoughts and prayers.
Thanks for listening to Timetellers. If you have any family stories from Dayton or the Miami Valley during the 1913 flood, we'd love to hear them. Send them our way. It's timetellershistory@gmail.com or any of our social media. Facebook,
I was just about
TikTok.
to say that.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was literally about to say we're social media.
Yes. We have, what now do we have, Dan?
Everything.
Except for that evil bird.
That doesn't exist anymore.
Evil bird. Devilish bluebird.
Yes, that.
Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, when there are 5 rivers around you, you might want to be careful of water. Bye.